Colin Smith,
Hello.
Marine, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you say?
By
The dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail, at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare that are bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You can remain standing just for a second, and I will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I'd like to introduce Mayor Holly. We'll just, too many names, Mayor.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Lane to left. We honor and remember you and your families. Please allow me to share a poem, Remember, by Rabbi Sylvan Kamen and Jack Reimer. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us. As we remember them when we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them when we are lost and sick at heart. We remember them when we have joy we crave to share. We remember them when we have decisions that are difficult to make. We remember them when we have achievements that are based on theirs. We remember them as long as we live, they too will live. For they are now a part of us as we remember them.
At this time, I'd like to have George Lutz come to the stage. George is the founder of Honor and Remember. I can let him give you a little bit of background, but then we're going to be doing the flag presentation, and immediately following, we will have a procession to carry the flags out to the field and recognize all the Gold Star families right before the game.
Hey everybody, what an amazing event tonight. I can't thank Joe enough. You guys should thank Joe enough for all he has done to bring remembrance to this high school. I mean, he came to me and said, hey, we're having my high school reunion, and I've got this great idea. I really want to honor, this particular fallen service member here during the reunion. I'm going to get a few people to come, and what started as just a simple moment of remembrance, I think turned into this snowball opportunity to really make a statement that is so important, as the mayor so poignantly put it. We remember in so many situations, right? It's so important to remember. I just went to lunch at a place called Smitty's. Some of you guys may, well, behind there is a cemetery. Bob, I didn't see the name of it. Bob tells me it's called Ridgelawn. Is that it? And forgive me if I get emotional, because as I'll share with you in a few minutes, this isn't what I do, it's who I am. So loss affects me very deeply. So I decided I was going to go across the street before we ate and visit some graves. And as I wandered through that cemetery, if you've never been, take the time to go alone and just walk those gravestones and just read. And what I was looking for was service members who gave their lives for their country, for their city, for their state. And it is a very, very old cemetery going back to the 1700s. And many of those gravestones were those that died in the Civil War. And one of the things that was very poignant to me, as I could read some of them, not most of them, because they had been weathered, but there was a very particular, very tall monument that the city had erected for 6 soldiers who gave their lives from another state. And every one of those kids were 17 years old. And this city thought enough to remember 6 kids who came from Maryland and West Virginia and erect a monument for these 17-year-old kids who barely had lived life at all, but yet served and died for a belief. And they were being remembered. And that hasn't changed for 200 years, that we should all appreciate that someone gave their life so that we didn't have to. This all began for me, some of you may have heard the expression that there are only 2 defining forces in the universe willing to give their lives for you. Jesus Christ for your soul, and the American soldier for your freedom. And that became very real to me when on December 29th, 2 uniformed soldiers came to my door and delivered 5 very simple words. We regret to inform you. The most devastating words that any parent could ever hear. And what do you do with that? How do you accept it? Because that's one thing we men can't do. We like to fix things. We can't fix that. There's no way of reversing that. And I knew that those memories that I had with him would all stop at that moment. And everything I had was only everything that I had to remember him. And I went on a search to find out, what do we do as Americans to remember those that gave everything for what we enjoy every single day? And I'll tell you that search found me very little. I realize that as a nation, we do a lot to remember those that are deployed, those that are veterans, those that are wounded. But there had been very little for those that didn't come home. And not only that didn't come home from wounds in battle, but didn't come home completely from the physical and the invisible wounds, emotional wounds. And I looked around and I found a lot of banners: support our troops, pray for our troops, deployment parties, coming home parties. But I didn't find a lot for our fallen. their families especially, because those men and women are gone, but their families will be with us, grieving and remembering for the rest of their lives. And over the course of that research, I visited with a lot of families, hundreds of families. And now I can say, and it's not a badge by any means, thousands of families that I've spoken to. And realize that one of the most important things that you can give this family is to not forget their loved one. That's all that's left, because they're doing it every day. They're wearing dog tags. Many of them have tattoos. Anything they can to remember their own loved one. But how does the nation? I found out a recent survey that 80% of Americans don't know why Memorial Day exists. 80% of this country doesn't know why we have Memorial Day. Now that was a survey a few years ago, and I think last year or earlier this year, they came out with another survey that said, well, it wasn't 80, it's in 60% of the country. Well, I don't care if it's not 10% of the country. Every individual, every citizen that is free in this nation should know why we have Memorial Day. So we can't look at that day and say, well, that's our answer to remember, because it's not an answer. And most of us know it's the first day of spring, or first day of summer, I should say. School's letting out, it's barbecue time, it's sale time, whatever that may be. And I knew that that wasn't the answer. It wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for a way for America to send a message by banner or however that these men and women were important enough to remember. Like that monument for those 6 17-year-olds. And it wasn't out there. It wasn't out there. And I thought, well, how do you get the attention of a nation? What do you do? Because obviously, most of us are apathetic. They don't know what to do. And then I've been told that everybody wants to do something, they just don't know what to do. But how do you send that message? You know that Gold Star families who have lost loved ones in military service, are everywhere amongst you. They're everywhere, but they don't identify themselves. So you don't know who they are. So even if you cared, how would you send a message? You could hang an American flag on the side of your house and say, well, I'm remembering the fallen. Nobody knows that. You could have just become an American citizen. You could have just bought a brand new flag. There's 1,000 reasons to hang the American flag. It stands for everything. Yet we do have flags for everything in this country, don't we? The American flag for our unity and diversity in our country. We have a state flag to identify the borders around which we live. We have city flags. I dare say that probably Elyria Catholic has their own flag. We even have flags that tell you where to hit your golf ball, right? But we never had a symbol that recognized and appreciated and sent a message to those, not who just gave their lives in their memory, but to the families who are still with us, crying for someone to remember their loved one. And so on Memorial Day of 2008, I thought the best way of reaching this nation was to create a symbol. Something that never existed before, and I have no idea, why me. I needed to heal in some way, and I thought the best way of healing was to give. And I thought if I could create something to give to this nation, so that those that wanted to do something could do something very specific by flying and displaying a flag that only said one thing: thank you. I remember your sacrifice. I remember your loss. I remember your grief. But I want to celebrate with you the life that gave me the freedoms that I have. And very simply, I don't know if everybody got a program or not, but the symbolism behind this flag, the Honor and Remember flag, unveiled on the Memorial Day of 2008. The red field, I mean, this is probably obvious to most everybody in here, right? It just sends that exact message of understanding. The red field stands for the blood shed. What? American flag, red. The white field, the purity of that sacrifice, because each one of our men and women said to us, we've got our job, we know what we're doing, we'll be back. And Joe, even you. The blue star goes back to World War I, when a solid blue star was hung in a banner on the windows and doors of families who had someone out in the fight. Sometimes there'd be 1, 2, 3, 5 blue stars. Back in the first 2 world wars, there were a lot of families out there. And as you went by those families' homes, you'd know how many of their loved ones were out there preserving freedom. When that blue star was overlaid with a gold star, you knew they weren't coming home. That's where we get the term Gold Star Mother, Gold Star Father, Gold Star Wife. And you may not know this, but this weekend is Gold Star Mothers and Family Day. It's Sunday, so this is very timely. The folded flag, handed to every family at the memorial service of their loss. I say that this country was built on one folded flag at a time. The flames above are an eternal reminder that we will never forget, eternal flames. And actually, I don't point this out, but you see this blue and these red. This blue flame actually is this life, this individual life as he's joining his brothers and sisters. And the words below, we will always honor their sacrifice and remember them individually by name. It was my hope that I could introduce a symbol that would be embraced so that every American would have a very specific way to send their own message to the hundreds and thousands of people that may drive by your flagpole that you may not know. They lost their grandfather. They lost their great-grandfather. They lost their father. From whatever generation, this flag recognizes every generation of military fallen from the beginning of our history. It's endorsed by the sons of the American Revolution. And that was my hope, that it would be embraced by every generation. It is now, in the last 12 years, has been adopted by legislation in 26 states. 26 states have officially legislated this as their state symbol of remembrance. Ohio is not one of them. Anybody can help with that. And right now there are 2 bills in Congress. 2 bills in Congress to make this our national symbol of remembrance. When my son came to me and said, "Dad, I joined the Army," he came to me one day. He was married, had a child at that time. And I looked at him, this was in 2003, and I said, "Son, are you crazy? There's a war going on. We were just going into Iraq like heavy." He said, "I know, Dad." But he said, "The women and children are being oppressed over there. And I think I can make a difference." So I gave him a hug. He didn't ask my permission. Told him to keep his head down. And that we would pray. Of course, he didn't come home. But you know, every parent in America would rather somebody else's kid died for their country besides their own. It's a natural inclination. I'll hold my hand up. Because before he died, I never gave a thought about anybody else who died before him. Not one thought. And maybe you're all different, but I think I'm a typical American. And I would say that somebody else's child or husband or uncle is dying so that yours doesn't have to. And what's the very least that you can do? The very least. Go back to that first phrase I said. What do the families want more than anything? That their loved one not be forgotten. So the very least we can do is say thank you. Just say thank you. But how do you do that? If you don't have a way to say thank you that's very specific and very understood, then it's hard to reach the masses, isn't it? Because you may know one fallen hero, you may know two, but do you know 100? And do you know all of their family relations? You don't. I'll bet you don't even know the one that you do know. You may only know because they're in a local town, whether they were married or not, whether their parents are still living, whether they're divorced, whether they had kids, whether they had siblings. You don't really know the extent of that family unit. And so how do you reach them all? I tell you that the Honor and Remember flag is our nation's expression of appreciation. And it's the only thing that exists in this country that's tangible, repeatable, and that sends that message to everyone. But tonight, you're not just learning about the flag, and maybe as you're learning about it for the first time, but we're here for a special reason. And that special reason is to honor 4 individuals who graduated from this high school. And I will tell you that this is the first time in the history of our organization in 12 years that a high school has brought people together to honor their own alumni. First time. Yeah. And as you'll come to find out, Joe is went over the top. And I would really like to see this as a model in high schools all around America. Because I know those high schools, they all have lost alumni. And so we hope that this will be a model. But the flag isn't just to fly on your flag poles and send this message. It's to make sure that we haven't forgotten the families. Remember the purpose. These families who want to know that we haven't forgotten is that we can do something special for them individually. And so tonight, we have prepared a very special set of flags for 4 special families. And keeping up with our time, we're going to go on with that. So I have one thing to say, and you want to call, who's the first family? Cameron?
Yes.
If the Cameron family would please come forward, and whoever's reading the certificate. While they're coming up, I'm going to show you that what I'm holding in my hand is a hand-sewn Honor and Remember flag, prepared especially for this family. But the reason I'm holding it like this is because it's folded in a triangle to mirror the American flag that was folded and handed to the family at the memorial service. And the U.S. flag that was folded reverently and respectfully was meant to be encased and kept as a keepsake forever at the memorial of their loss. But once this flag is unfolded, and I won't repeat this every time tonight, once this flag is unfolded, it's really meant, it's never to be folded like this again, and meant to become a celebration of their life and not a memorial of their loss.
I'd like to introduce Mike Buckledge to read the certificate.
Thank you. This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Specialist 4th Class Robert O. Cameron. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their sacrifice by displaying this symbol collectively as a nation. We humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully thank you. I might add that ever since being back from Vietnam, I've often considered my many years a bonus years that our fallen heroes never got. We want to thank you again with proud assistance and appreciation from Elyria Catholic High School. Thank you.
Can we have the Dietrich family please come forward? And the certificate reader.
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant Paul C. Diedrich. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say thank you. With proud assistance and appreciation from AM Vets and Post 47, Lorain, Ohio.
Could we have the West family please come forward?
This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect. In memory of Master Sergeant Robert H. West. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember his selfless sacrifice. By displaying the symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say, thank you, West family. George A. Lutz, founder, with proud assistance and appreciation from Elyria Catholic High School, class of 1979. God bless you.
Could we please have the Tillett family come forward?
This honor and remember flag is presented in eternal gratitude and respect, and remember Sergeant Lane Tillett. With this flag, we honor the patriots' unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of their loss and respectfully say thank you to the Tillett family. George A. Lutz, founder, and I'm very proud to know Lane Tillett and the family. Dominic Villa.
All right, I don't want to rush everybody too much here, but we reached a hard stop and we're going to proceed out the door over here. Quickly, I would like to thank Elyria Catholic High School. Glad to see we got Video Man up there as well. Thank you very much. And if we could have the Gold Star family, I am missing some flag holders, so maybe a couple of volunteers in front of each Gold Star family to carry the flag as we proceed to the football field. Thanks, everybody.